Urban Framework really began with the journey that Josh and I took together. That was about 8 hours from Hong Kong.
We're seeing vast amounts of infrastructure, mountains being cut away. Through the process of going past all these different types of conditions, we witness very much these different states of transformation.
What we looked at was the rural, not as a kind of opposite condition from the city, but really as the sort of front lines of this urbanization process.
Through doing a design project in a certain area, that would lead us to an investigation about that place, finding more about what people do, how they live their lives, how their lives have changed since the opening up period and urbanization has taken root. The challenge when we first came here, they said, here's the old school, we want to knock it down and build a newer school. And we said, no, we want to try and maintain that old school, to use those spaces and stitch them together to form a new educational landscape.
What we're able to do by being based in the university is that we can offer design services to NGOs and charities who often have the funding for a project, hospitals, schools.
And this, of course, comes back as research for us. Josh and I work pro bono. And so when there's no single person paying you, it also becomes more of a collaboration between parties. The conversation becomes more important. That's very, very much how we like to work.
You know, we might build a primary school that's an outreach for a village. So it essentially doubled the population. After we built the school, we renovated the old school, which had been abandoned, and we turned that into a community center. That became an outreach center for other charities to come in and work with some economic programs in the same village. It set a pattern for how we do things. How does the village evolve and transform through these very specific interventions? And we continue to essentially work in this village.
I think also what we've observed is that the once binary relationship between the rural and the urban, it was a very black and white situation, but that's no longer the case. And in that sense, we're interested in the relationships, the ecology that exists between the urban and the rural, as those typical kind of relationships have become eroded.
A lot of the time is spent beforehand, trying to come up with an appropriate program, trying to come up with new typologies, things which don't already exist. So most of our projects last about 3 years. The construction period is only 6 months or 1 year.
To think about how we operate as a practice. So for example, one village, the project was a community center, but having gone back, we realized that one issue that we really needed to address was the construction of the village house itself, to further develop ideas about this potential prototype for a new house. So in a way, it's not just one architecture project, but one architecture project could lead to numerous directions. It doesn't have to be the singularity of one building itself.
Each village is it's like a different patient, and we're trying to understand each one to build up a toolbox, an encyclopedia of case studies on urbanization, and then strategies for dealing with this.
And I think one thing that we've developed is this approach that links research and design, not as sequential processes, but as parallel processes.
I guess the premise is that urbanization is inevitable, but it can lead to very, very sustainable and very positive effects, or more often than not, very negative ones. And we have to study that process.
To take on the social problem of the urban-rural divide in China is not something that we can manage or should even attempt to do. But I think what we can do is to offer and enable and facilitate different types of space within the village to allow that village to evolve and adapt given the pressures and forces that are beginning to act upon it.